afternoon, music world. John here from What's Spinning. Here tonight with the next installment in my ranking discographies video. And this month, we are in April 2024, the year of our Lord. And the Black Keys, as of a few days ago, have released their latest album, Ohio Players. It's their 11th studio album, which is crazy to think about because I have basically followed them since the start of their existence in the early 2000s. And, you know, you're going to hear more about this in my review, but my relationship with the Black Keys over the years has been a little all over the place. So when this album was coming down the pipe, you know, I never really know what to think from a distance from a Black Keys album, but I figured this time around I would rank their discography. Now, couple of ground rules. As always, this is just my opinion. It might not be yours, it might be yours, but that's where we're going. However, just don't forget, all opinion as always. And secondly, and most importantly, they have a lot of EPs. They've got a very extensive discography at this point also, like the Delta Cream covers album. We're sticking just to their studio albums. And at number 10, this was easily the album that I was going to put last, even from the beginning of this little project, because it's a special album for me because I've never actually sat through the damn thing because I physically cannot. And at number 10 in the Black Keys discography, I'm putting 2014's Turn Blue. I mean, from a distance, all my buddies at the time were coming to me like, oh my God, John, the Black Keys are going psychedelic rock. You know, you need to hear this. It's so interesting. And from a distance, it sounds interesting. But it is not interesting. As a matter of fact, it is the biggest slog the band that has ever put out. The songwriting is like so bottom of the barrel and so phoned in, and these atmospheres aren't even close to being as cool or as edgy or as genuinely psychedelic as they should be. It's formulaic, it just doesn't sound like it was handled with care, and Pat and Dan both sound like they're half asleep. Okay, at number 9, I'm going to put 2022's Dropout Boogie. This was like the number one reason that for this latest album, Ohio Players, I had as many reservations as I did. This album is just so tame. It is the biggest just blah album in their discography. I mean, personally, I've not been into the single. I wasn't even into the singles on this album. Wild Child just rubs me the wrong way every time I hear it. Everything about this album just seems so unbelievably formulaic, and it's just a shame to hear this, especially like when you look at some of their first few albums. Now at number 8, this is, you know, where some things get a little controversial in this countdown. At number 8, I'm going to put 2006's Magic Potion. This to me was an album that at the time I wasn't that into, and as I've grown, this just has really rubbed me more and more the wrong way. I mean, I love Your Touch as much as the next guy. I always will. It's a great grimy and gritty and sleazy tune, but most of this album compared to where the band had been just seems a whole lot more on the rails. And not only that, you could just see such a sharp decline in the songwriting and the passion on this project. Not only that, but this to me has always been like the start of their sound getting a little for me. At number 7, I'm going to put 2008's Attack and Release, and trust me, if you asked me like years ago, this would have been much lower on this countdown. This is an album that took me many, many years to really kind of warm up to. And I certainly have warmed up to a hot chunk of it, but I will say this, you know, I don't think it's as perfect as people think it is. You know, a lot of people really love this record. This to a lot of people was the beginning of their reinvention. My only issue was, you know, for one, this was the first Danger Mouse recorded Black Keys record, and I think he's done a lot better work with them. It just doesn't sound as good to me as their first couple of recordings, and this is just a really weird time for the Black Keys. Now, rolling right along to number 6 in their discography, I'm going with 2019's Let's Rock. If anything, I actually think this album's a little underrated. Look, it's far from perfect, and the lows on this album are really some of the band's lowest. However, I would be remiss to say that Go, Low High, and Eagle Birds are 3 of the best singles that the band has put out since Brothers. The Twin Peaks references throughout this record are completely bizarre, not just saying that for once on this channel. And also, it's easy to sit through. It's short, it's sweet, it's really not that bad. Now, at number 5, I'm going to put El Camino from 2010. It's not a bad project at all. I mean, if you enjoyed the sound of their reinvented Brothers album, chances are you're going to really love a lot of the stuff on here. I mean, I still think, Lonely Boy is just a great single all around. It still goes fairly hard, and Little Black Submarine is one of the better deep cuts from this era of the Black Keys. I mean, just know, going up to this album, it's very shiny, it's very polished. Now, at number 4, I'm going to put their 2002 debut, The Big Come Up. I remember picking this up in a record store just because I thought the cover was so raw, so gnarly, so sweaty, and that's exactly what this album is. I mean, if you haven't listened to the first couple of years of the Black Keys, their first couple of records, you really are missing out, just because they are done with such an authenticity and a rawness to it. Yeah, this album is nastier and gnarlier than it has any right to be. And Thick Freakness, which came out in 2003, we're going to put that at number 3. And honestly, it's even more so of everything that went into their debut album. It is nastier. It is muddier. It is just so gritty. That muddy production on this track, oh, it's just done so well. And that cover of Have Love Will Travel. Now, at number 2, I'm going to put Rubber Factory, 2004's Rubber Factory, which for many years was my favorite Black Keys album. This, to me, is the band at their, real, raw, bluesy peak. It has the authenticity of their early recordings, but it also has the expanded song structure and catchier hooks of their later material. Literally, some of my favorite Black Keys tracks, all on Rubber Factory, which leads me to the very controversial number 1. Yeah, I'm going to put Brothers as number 1, 2010's Brothers, and for many years I would have kicked myself for doing that. And listen, the jury is out. This is not as gritty or as raw or as grimy or authentic as their earliest recordings, far from it. But truth be told, it's a very consistent album. The band reintroduced themselves practically as a much more indie-leaning band and did it, at least on this project, with at least some level of dignity and class. I mean, the hooks are really memorable. The singles are legendary by this point, and I just feel like as far as a reinvention goes, it's honestly one of the more effective ones in modern history, even though, since then things have certainly gone downhill. I still really do love the album, and I think that it's their best at the end of the day. Now, let me know what you all think down below, and most importantly, stay tuned in a few days for my album review of the new Black Keys record, Ohio Players, and see where it kind of lines up with the rest of their discography. And until next time, have a great day, friends.